The materials I have been using, or that I am going to be using and I have been using, I have this little jar top, or well, we need something that's perfectly round. Yeah, I just happen to have this jar. It works with the size of the card. I do have watercolor paper. I cut this out. It is 6 by, what is it, 4.5 inches. But you can use any size paper. This is just, I don't know, what works for me, kind of a standard card size. You can use a glass, anything with a perfectly round top, because we will be essentially stamping the watercolor onto here and working with that. So you'll have to play around with size and whatnot, but this is what works for me, and it should be either plastic or glass because we are working with watercolors and we don't want to disintegrate like any paper cups or something. Um, and then I also have masking tape here, or you can use what's called artist tape. This is a little thick for the size card that I'm using. So I actually have what's called washi tape here, or craft tape. It works really well when you are trying to mask or make sure that any watercolor does not bleed somewhere. So this is, I already put this on here. So I just put a little line of the washi tape across, I eyeballed it the middle of my watercolor paper. So you can cut it or easily just tear it with your fingers, because we are going to be creating the ornaments over top of this. And then once it's dry, I will be removing the tape so that we have a blank white line. And I like writing happy holidays. You can write whatever you want. You don't even have to do this step. I just kind of like the look of it with the happy holidays across it. So that is what I'm going to be using. I have my Micron pen, or my Faber-Castell one, that I like using to write on this, but you can use whatever you'd like to write. And then of course, since this is watercolor, I got some watercolor paints here. My brush. I also do especially have shimmery watercolor paints that I like to put on because a lot of the time ornaments are shimmery. Also got a paper towel here you can see, and my water for the watercolor. All right, so let me just get my watercolors going on for 1 second. All right, so this is a little trick that I don't know why I didn't learn it sooner. I actually have a little spray bottle here that I like to, yeah, my paints have gotten very contaminated, but oh well. I mean, you can obviously just use your brush and put the water in the paints, but I like this method where I just spray the water. It's a little less messy in my opinion. So I'm gonna just do that to get my watercolors activated. So again, it depends on how many ornaments you want to personally do. I usually do 4. So I'm going to do 4 in this one. And also I have learned through trial and error that you do need to be careful, because we are going to have the ornaments overlap. If you choose not to have them overlap, then color mixing isn't a concern. But like when I tried using blue with the gold or yellow color, just the nature of watercolors, if you have just too much or just slightly too much water on your brush, it will cause the color to bleed, and it can create kind of a, I don't know, I think it kind of ruins it. I've gone through a few batches where that happened. So I learned my lesson. So I'm going to be using the purple, blue, and red today because those all kind of work together, at least with this paint palette, since I have experimented. So just be cautious of the mixing of colors. So I think I'm gonna start with the blue. Obviously, I've used my blue a lot, so I like the blue. And because of the nature of, we do need to have the ornaments, so I'm gonna do 2 at a time, but you want them to fully dry to, again, avoid any possible bleeding if you can of the colors. So I am gonna be making 4 along here with varying, some will be higher, some will be lower to create visual interest and variety. So I'm gonna do the most left one first, and then whichever one would be technically the third one. That way they don't overlap, and then they can dry. And then once those are dry, then I will do the one that will be here and the one on the end. You'll see what I'm talking about in just a second. So I have my blue activated. Trying to do this so you can see it, but without me messing up or getting it on the actual thing as well. So I'm gonna dip my brush in water. I have my jar top or whatever you're using for your perfect circle. Gonna pull some of my blue, and then I'm just gonna simply paint it on the top of my jar or whatever you might be using. You don't want to have too much water because again, you risk it bleeding, but you do want to have enough color where you'll be able to pull the color from the circle. So you kind of got to work quickly. So let me move these real quick. And then I'm going to just, guess I'll do these lower, stamp it down, pick it up, ta-da, we got a perfect circle. I like dipping my jar in the water just to get the residual paint off, even though I'm going to be using the same color, but then I just sit out my paper towel. So now, again, like I said, I've got to work quick before it dries because we want to pull the color from the rim of this. So I just wet my brush. I always like doing a little highlight, so I just leave that part of the ornament white as a, well, yeah, as a highlight. And these specific watercolors are very vibrant. So you can see, I didn't even have to put any other paint on my paintbrush. It automatically already filled the whole thing. Different companies, watercolors react differently. So you might need to pull some more color. You might need to add more water. Again, it's all about experimenting and the look that you're going for. But this one worked out pretty nicely. I worked quick enough where there isn't a super distinct line. Sometimes you can really see the outline from the jar, but I'm happy with how this kind of faded. It gave me that, kind of three-dimensional form look with the highlight and everything. So I am happy with my first one. And now, again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to do blue once again, and I'm going to do it over here. So hold some of my blue, quickly putting it on the top. Just want to make sure I have enough. And gonna stamp it, and I'm gonna do this one lower as well. And remember, since this is the third one, I'm gonna position it kind of here because there will be two more. One will go here and one will go at the very end. Stamped it down. Got a lot of color to pull from there. That's good. Just rinsed off my jar top. Dip my brush in the water. Don't want too much water because we're just gonna pull the color from the residual paint that we got from the jar. And just gonna make a really quick little highlight and then fill it in. Yeah, wow, this is actually very quick. So there are my two blue ornaments, or the beginnings of them. And this one I did end up using a lot of water. So the nature of paint in general, especially watercolor, takes a hot minute to dry sometimes. And we want to have these perfectly dry before I add the other colors on top of it, again, to avoid any possible bleeding or mixing of colors. So, I do have a blow dryer that I'm going to pause the recording in a second, just for time's sake, and blow dry these to make sure it's perfectly dry. There's heat guns you can use, or if you don't have anything, you might just need to let it sit out for a while until it's dry and then continue. But if you do have too much water, you could always take a little bit of paper towel and just kind of dab it to soak up some of the excess water or some of the color. But I do really like that very vibrant blue. So I am going to pause the recording, dry this, and then we will reconvene. All right, so I did have to soak up a little bit of that excess watercolor because when I started using my blow dryer, it's very powerful. So it almost blew the color out. That's something you do have to be careful with. If you have a heat gun, I think it's a little bit more controlled, but just be cautious. Another thing to just with the nature of watercolor, if you are using a blow dryer or a heat gun or something with heat, or if you're using any masking tape, that is actually a way that the heat might cause the tape to unstick. So just be cautious of that. You can see my paper even curled a little bit because of the heat. So I'm just making sure that my tape is nice and flat again, because we want to avoid bleeding up the color if possible. But now my blue ornaments are perfectly dry. So now I'm going to do the red and the purple one. All right, so I'm gonna do the red one first here, and then I'm gonna do the purple one here. And I'm gonna make them slightly higher again, because want to create some variety, create visual interest. So I got my red already activated. I am gonna pull some more water though, just to make sure I got enough color on my paintbrush. Grab my jar, paint the top. This red is so pigmented, I'm not gonna double dip in it because you can see it's already like, wow. Want to work fast, gonna flip it over. And again, do it slightly higher. And I do want the colors to overlap. So stamping it down. There we go. I got a little drop there. Oh, well, that's okay. Just the nature of watercolor. But actually, let me see if I can hold that for, all right, well, oh well. So I'm just gonna get a little bit of water on my brush. And again, just pull the residual color from the red. Well, I guess I'll just go over it because it is so pigmented, it'll be fine. Well, you can already see some of the colors are already running a little bit, so we're getting a little bit of a purpley maroon color with the blue and the red, but there we go. Yeah, it is bleeding ever so slightly here. If you do have too much color, then some of it might leak off of the top of the jar, whatever you're using. So, again, it's just the nature of watercolor. It's very uncontrollable, but you can have a happy accident and it might turn out not the way you wanted, but it might turn out even better. So that's one of the cool things I do like about watercolor, is just to see how it reacts and the colors mix and everything and the end result you get. So I don't mind that. Some of the colors are turning a little purple, but oh well. So again, I'm just gonna rinse off my jar top in my water and dry out my paper towel. So now I'm going to pull my purple color, or it is purple, it's not purple color, it is purple. You can see it's very pigmented, so I don't want to get too much. Okay, that was a dry piece of paint. Don't want to mess it up, so I'm gonna do my jar top real quick. I feel like it could have a little bit more, but since the red was very runny, I'm just gonna leave that. Flip it over. Want to stamp it right there, and then pick it up. Okay, kind of liking that. And now again, I'm just going to pull a little bit of extra color and then pull the residual purple from my brush and around here. Putting in that little highlight. And and it's okay, I painted over the highlight of the blue one because again, these are overlapping. So it gives the illusion of that purple, like glass or whatever material these might be, overlapping with the blue. And I guess you can kind of see this more pronounced, like I was mentioning with the blue ornaments. It depends on how you stamp it, but you can see more of the pronounced stroke line or the outline from the edge of the jar. It is more pronounced with some certain colors, like yellow a lot. The lighter ones, you'll have a more pronounced outline, but that's okay. That's just the nature of it. So I have my ornaments here, and I'm sure you can imagine the next thing that I'm going to have to do now is dry it again. Just with watercolor, there's a lot of majority of the time, it might be just you have to wait for the paint to dry. So the next thing I will be doing once after I dry this, forgot to mention, I couldn't find my gold one, but I have acrylic paint markers. I think there's other metallic markers or you could use paints or just a black Sharpie pen, whatever you have available. But, since the holidays, I like that kind of shimmery gold and silver. So I am going to use my silver acrylic paint marker to make those little, like the little, I don't know what the right word for them is, but the little things on the top that the string is attached to when you hang ornaments. So you'll see what I'm talking about in just a sec. And then after that, I will be using the same pen that I will use to write Happy Holidays along here to create the strings, but you'll see in just a moment. So let me pause again, dry, and then we will get back. All right, so I always seem to have too much water on my brush when I'm doing watercolor. So I did actually take this and try to soak up some of the excess water on the purple one, but you can probably see here a bit. It did just it bled a little bit with the blue. So again, just the nature of watercolor, you gotta practice getting some purple in here. And again, this is why I say that you should use colors that work well together. Personally, I think purple, blue, and red or pinkish kind of work well. So even though the blue bled a little bit here with the red, it did create purple because red and blue, two primary colors makes purple a secondary color. So at least it all kind of fits with the color scheme and looks well. I don't know, I kind of like the color bleeding a little bit and giving it that look, but again, so just err on the side of caution with what colors you might mix, or if you don't overlap them, you won't have that problem. You can use any combination of colors. So I've dried this, made sure my tape is still nice and on there. At this point, you could do the shimmery. So I do the color, the flat watercolor, then I take the correlating shimmery color, whichever you want to use, and then put it over it. But I like doing that after I create the little string. So I'm going to do that last. So now I'm going to take my silver acrylic paint pen. Oops, let me just soak up that water. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to just draw these little top things, just by hand, nothing crazy. Little tops of the ornament. I really like to find my gold one because I prefer doing gold, but we'll do silver for now. So you can see that this one is overlapping a little bit. So I'm going to take artistic liberty and just kind of eyeball it there because it would show through. We're assuming these are kind of like stained glass almost. And then I'm going to do the one up here. And there we go. So once you have the tops of the ornaments, I don't know what I like being able to like move my canvas or water paper, whatever you're using around, because sometimes it's easier for me to draw things at different angles, like this, for example. You can do it vertically, but it's easier for me to do it horizontally. So I'm just going to rotate my paper. Then I'm going to do just a little kind of half circle as maybe the metal thing that you attach the string to. And then try to draw as straight of a line as possible there to give the illusion that they are hanging. And I'm just going to go down the line and do the same for all of my ornaments. And, human error, it's not going to be perfectly straight. If you do want it to be perfectly straight, you could use any straight edge as a guide or a ruler. I have my ruler over there, don't mess up all my stuff. But I'm just going to do it by hand because, it's the nature of a handmade gift. So there we go. Yes, I did get some lots of paint, but, oh well. So I mean, pretty much this is the bulk of it. If you don't have shimmery paints or whatnot, or maybe that's not your preferred aesthetic, you don't have to do that, but I am going to add my shimmery paint on it. So there's so many colors, but just the one that I happen to have, I do have a blue and a purple, which I'm going to use on my blue and my purple ornaments. This red, I've played with it. It is not quite the same like tone as this, so I don't want to impact the color. So if in doubt, I always just kind of use the white, more see-through one just to give it a pure shimmer and it doesn't affect the color. So that's what I'm going to use in the red one. So since I have mostly blue, I'm going to start with blue. I'm going to just wet my brush. Get some of that water in that nice, pretty, shimmery blue one. And I do like to get a lot of water in these because I don't know, I just love, obviously I love blues and purples, so I really like the way that the shimmery blue here looks. So I think I've gotten it enough. And I am going to paint over my highlight, but since technically my red one is in front of the blue, I am not going to paint where they overlap there. I'm going to end up adding the white shimmer for the red one there. And it's super subtle. These, I mean, I haven't experimented too much with metallic or shimmery watercolors, but it's almost too hard to see it. Like it doesn't really look shimmery. You have to kind of wait for it to dry, but it just adds that little extra touch that I really like. And then I'm gonna pull some more, do it again. So again, I'm only going to paint on the pure blue parts. I don't want to put the shimmery. I mean, if you mess up and you accidentally do it, you know, such is life, it's fine, but I'm just gonna try to not overlap it with the red or the purple because I'm gonna go over that with the different shimmery colors. And there we go. Again, I know you can't quite tell from here. Hopefully once it's dried a little bit more, I can kind of hold it on the side and you'll be able to see. So now I'm gonna do the purple. Clean off my brush. So I wanna get that nice and saturated. And then I'm going to paint over the non-overlapping part first, just to get that color settled there. And then a little bit more, and then overlap it over the blue. And we got our shimmery purple ornament. I did kind of lose the highlight with that, but oh well. I have a white acrylic paint pen. If you have that, or just white acrylic paint. If you really want to add the highlight after this dries, you could just take a very thin brush, just do a little stroke of white to add the highlight, you know, personal preference. And now, last but not least, for the white shimmery kind of see-through color on the red. So as you can tell, I've been using the white the most. If I don't have an ornament on here that matches any of the colors I use here, ultimately I just end up using the white one. All right, so let me get that color saturated and get some, okay, got some on my brush. And I'm gonna go right ahead and paint on the overlapped area because this is the last one. And I guess you can kind of see this on the camera. It just kind of, well, yeah, it just gives it a shimmery, glossy finish almost. And there we go. Again, these might look different than regular watercolors, but they are watercolors, so this is wet. So once again, the drying game. So again, I'm going to pause the recording just to make sure this is perfectly dry so none of my colors leak or bleed through here. But then after I dry this, then I will take off my washi or craft tape so that we can see that line going through it, and I'll end up writing happy holidays on it. So I will be back in a sec. All right, drying those were quicker because I guess I used less water with the shimmery colors, but somehow the shimmer color didn't quite reach this part of the area on the red one, but I just wanted to show you, you can see, oh yeah, see, you can see it's definitely more pronounced on the red one, but you can kind of see some of the shimmering on the blue and the purple as well. Again, it is just very subtle, but it just adds that extra little touch. So like I was saying, this might be if you're afraid, sometimes for some reason specifically, this blue masking tape pulls up some of the paper and color when I use it. That's why I like using washi tape, because it's the one that blocks the water the most and it doesn't it doesn't pull up any of the paper for me. But if you are concerned about that would be a good, or this would be a good time to like take your heat gun or what is it, or a blow dryer, and use a hot setting and just very slowly blow it along the line of the tape, because that'll cause the adhesive to come up and it just add an extra layer of protection, and hopefully you won't pull up any of the color of the paper. So I'm just going to flip it over and try to pull this off. I am confident enough that I'm not gonna, because I have used this tape a lot. So, oh, okay, wow. Oh, and it didn't bleed. Okay. Even with this, sometimes I get like a little bit of bleeding on the edges, which I don't know, it's a look, it's just part of it, but this was pretty clean. So I'm very happy with that. So for my tape, well, or I'll throw it away eventually. And again, personal preference, this is just the preferred way I like doing this. I'm going to write happy holidays. I kind of like that, I guess like script or cursive stretched out look. You'll see what I'm talking about. So happy. So happy. And again, you don't want to write on it until it is dry, because otherwise it could cause the paper to bleed, even if it's just slightly damp. Just make sure you're only writing on very dry paper, because there's too many things that can get messed up with watercolor. And then holidays. I mean, you can get real fancy and measure stuff out, but I just eyeball it. I'm happy with it. I like it. You could, I don't know, I've seen some people like take little star stamps and put stamps. You can jazz it up however you want, but this is how I make them. And I have sent these to family and friends. Just flip over the card, write to, whoever a message, or not, or you could just send this to somebody and they could use it as a card for somebody else, whatever works for you. But hopefully, if you watch this recording, or if you're a digital art student who saw I demonstrate how to make a digital version of this in Procreate. If maybe you wanted to, I don't know, for fun, try to physically make it, or vice versa. I hope this helped. And if you did watch both ways of, I don't know, hopefully it was interesting to compare doing it in real life versus digitally. But yeah, that is how I like making simple handmade cards. Oh, actually, another thing I totally forgot that I'm obsessed with. I don't know. I have this little hole punch, or it's not a hole punch, it's a corner punch. You can see I love just like kind of rounding the edges. So I'm gonna use this one. I got this like for $5 on Amazon. You can get them at Michael's, whatever. Or you can even just use scissors. I don't know. I just think if you round the corners on cards, for example, or something, it just kind of adds an extra little, again, kind of like the shimmery, it's that extra nice little touch. You can see it makes it look just ever so slightly better, in my opinion, or a little bit more fancy. But again, depends on what you have access to, or if you do have scissors, you have to eyeball it and be a little bit more precise. But there we go. We got a nice little holiday card.